So we just saw Onward.
Bad Disney, Pixar. Pixar, Disney. Disney, Pixar. Pixar, Disney. Whee!
So let's talk about it. So, I personally like the movie, but I feel underwhelmed.
I just gotta say right now, spoiler alert.
Very much so. Let's just start from the beginning. I love the intro.
I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm gonna take it a little bit further back. We first heard about Onward at D23 last year. So 2019 D23. I was super excited. I was super excited. I felt a little weird, but they're talking fantasy, mystery, role-play games. Sounded really cool. I was really excited. I do love how the animation looked. And I love how they took a twist on fantasy, how your dogs are dragons and your earth raccoons are their unicorns. We even got a really cool poster from it. But yeah. Anyways, back to the intro.
I thought the introduction of this world was interesting. They do a good job explaining the whole fact of all the magic that used to be there and how the world has changed. And it makes us very much understand of how long ago in the past this world was.
Definitely.
How long it's been.
Shows, not to interrupt, but it shows everybody walking around, wizards using big staffs, and then it shows the invention of the light bulb. Then it grows into this metropolis with cars and manufacturing. A long period of time has passed. It definitely feels that way watching the intro. And I do love how they showed the intro because it really does tie into what I think of as fantasy and what I believe a lot of other people would think of as fantasy. Mermaids, wizards, warlocks, gnomes, elves, dwarves. It was really cool. And I really did enjoy that. And I love how they showed the transition from the past to the future. With the growing metropolis, with the growing of technology, industry, from people flying themselves to now having cars like we all do. So I thought that was really interesting and cool.
Yeah, and the movie as a whole is actually a really good movie. Again, like I said, I am a little underwhelmed. I'm a little disappointed.
I would say I'm a little disappointed, but I wouldn't say that I have this sense of underwhelmed. I wouldn't say that I felt underwhelmed. I was a little disappointed towards the end, but I get why they went there. If that makes sense.
Yeah, this is the biggest spoiler warning. So, either stop the video here or jump ahead. At the end of the movie, we finally get to finish summoning the father.
Yep.
And our main character, Ian, played by Tom Holland, who did a fantastic job in the movie. He did wonderful. All of a sudden, this character we've been building is just like, I'm now a humble, good guy. I don't need to see my dad. My older brother can take the time to say goodbye since he didn't get the chance to. And I just never met him. And that's completely against the entire character arc that they built for him. I get the progression of a character, but it's completely opposite what, even with the progression we had, what a person would do.
I do agree. I completely agree. So, a little bit of backstory. Ian is the youngest brother. His brother is... Now it's escaping me. Bentley? No. Yes.
No.
Barley.
Barley.
His name's Barley. Okay. So Barley is played by Chris Pratt.
Another fantastic casting. That was perfect.
The mother was played by Julia Dreyfus. They made a really good character combo. I really enjoyed the three of them together. So she's a single mom raising the two boys. They lost their father before Ian was born. He got really sick. So Barley grew up with that father, even if it was just for his younger years. Well, Ian never got that. So at the end, throughout the movie, Barley's like, oh, well, I only have 3 memories of our dad. And he's like, oh, well, I actually have 4. The 4th one is something he didn't like to talk about. As a young kid, seeing his dad hooked up to the ventilation and to the IVs, he never got to say goodbye. And that's what it is Ian's giving Barley that chance to say goodbye, to get his goodbye that he never got and that he's been regretting for 15 plus years. And Ian goes to save the day so that Barley gets that moment. Which really does go against this entire thing because Ian's never met his dad. The entire reason they went on this long quest was so Ian would finally get to meet their dad. And even though Barley got what felt like seconds with his dad, it's more than Ian ever got. And I think that was a little weird. But that's also one weird thing throughout the movie is a timing issue.
There's a big timing issue. They make timing a big deal.
And not to cut you off, but before we go there, and that's the thing. It's supposed to be that they'll lose their dad when the sun sets. The sun sets. It shows it as seconds, but in reality, even the amount of sun they had left would be a good 10 minutes, I would say.
It should have been, and I mean,
So
they established at the very beginning when they need to go and they have this 24 hours to do this. He looks down at his watch, he sets it, and we refer back to the watch. And
throughout the movie.
And you can see that, time is progressing pretty concurrently.
For the most part.
Until the end, when it's just like, oh, let's hurry things up. Oh, we're a little too fast, so all of a sudden, we're a lot later in the day than we were, 2 minutes ago. I mean...
That was one weird thing that did slightly bother me. I totally understand why they did a time limit. But one thing that also slightly bothered me is even though normally day to day the time of sun setting doesn't change that much, the paperwork that they did the spell off says until tomorrow's sundown, not 24 hours from the second that we summoned him.
Yeah. And then on top of that,
I get that they made that 24-hour reference mark because that's about as much time as it would be, but it's still like, that's not an exact...
Well, but even towards the end, before we summon the curse, again, spoilers, Ian goes ahead and takes the half of his dad that's there and goes sits and starts watching the sunset with him. And the sun is still pretty high while it's setting.
Yeah.
And less than 2 minutes later, it's gone.
It's a sliver.
You're like, wait a second.
And I mean, they do... In between that sitting down and his dad disappearing, they do have a fight, but it's definitely not our fight.
Yeah.
Which was a bit weird to me.
I mean, we both did agree if it wasn't for Disney Plus, we appreciate Disney Plus, we would be buying the movie as soon as it comes out because it is really good. It is really well done. Pixar did a fantastic job with the animation. And the story overall is still a really good story. And unfortunately, there's just those couple plot holes, but...
There were, and there was another plot hole where they took almost 20 hours of the 24 hours they had to make it to one spot, and supposedly...
It took like 30 minutes to get back.
Yeah. Because you end up ending where you started. And I mean, I kind of get it. They used magic. It was a straight path of water instead of twisty turning mountains, but it was still very weird to be like, it took us all day and we're already back. That was really, again, another plot hole. But overall, the movie was amazing. I love how they introduced the characters. They introduced Octavia Spencer, plays the Manticore. She did fantastic.
The Manticore is fantastic.
The Manticore is fantastic. The Manticore's Tavern was fantastic. But there's another plot hole with this. So they go to the Manticore's Tavern, and there's a photo of her with a head in her hand in her full aggravated Manticore state. And she's now this manager of a restaurant. And she talks about how she used to slay demons and dragons and curses with her sword, but now she's just this retired manager. Now, mind you, if you picture her in the world, I would say she's about 40. I don't know how Manticores age. That's something I've never even heard of. But she seems only like she's 40 years old, but is still talking about times when magic existed, which was, again, it feels like it was hundreds of years ago. They never do give us a definitive time of how long it was from the olden days to the present, but it definitely feels longer than any time of her being alive.
Yeah, no, that was definitely kind of weird.
And Octavia Spencer did an amazing job, and she really did. But yeah, that was another really weird plot hole that I wish they would have thought about.
Well, I thought it was quite convenient also how it just so happens she had tattoos on her arms of the story plot elements she needed to explain.
Specific curse. She has a specific curse tattooed on her arm that pertains exactly to the curse we're talking about that they go through. And that was really weird because I feel like there are way more curses in the world that...
Well, then on her other arm she had tattooed her sword, which, okay, congratulations, it's the most powerful sword that they've explained to defeat the curse, and you're the wielder of it, you're the only one that can use it. Why do you have it tattooed to your arm?
And that's another thing. So she's like, I sold my sword, we need to go get it. We're like, oh, okay, why did you sell your sword? If this was the most rare, if it was the only sword made out of this metal, if it's super rare, it can defeat curses. I get that you were in a bind at one point in your life, but you're now this flourishing restaurant manager, and it's still just sitting in this pawn shop? I kind of didn't understand that part either. I mean, it's convenient that it's in the same pawn shop it was whenever you sold it.
Yeah, she says that she sold it years ago, but yet apparently this pawn shop owner has never been able to move this ginormous, very rare, exotic metal sword.
It was very interesting. I didn't really get it. I wanted to like it. I just didn't get it. Okay, so that brings me to another point with her sword and the curse. So, for the boys to activate the spell to bring back their father, they need a phoenix stone. You put this phoenix stone in the staff, and you do the spell. We're like, okay, makes sense. They need to now find another phoenix stone to finish resurrecting their dad for the day. Apparently, this is the only phoenix stone on the face of the planet? I kind of didn't understand that.
And we just so happen to have a map to it, and it just so happens to be at a well that we were introduced earlier in a photo, which is right across the high school, straight from the high school, but we never saw it from the high school point of view until the very end when it was convenient to show, oh, hey, it's all next to each other. You've been actually at the main part of the story the whole time.
And I mean, I get that the map burned, so they maybe not have gotten a great look at the map. I get that, and they just took something from the Manticore's Tavern to figure out where they're going that led them on this long expedition, and maybe if they would have had the map, we wouldn't have had the story. I do understand that. But you did see them introduce the well, which seemed nowhere near.
It seemed like it was out in the middle of nowhere that they're going to be developing soon, not in the middle of this
city thing, yeah. That's another... I wish we would have gotten introduced a little more to the city that they were living in. I understand that there's basically no importance to it, but you see them show this big metropolis at the beginning, and then we get introduced to the little housing tract that they live in. You see it for a quick glimpse, and that's all we really see of it. And I kind of am confused why there's a metropolis. I just want to know more about it. I know it has nothing to do with the story, but I'm curious. You show it to me, I want to see it.
Well, and that's one thing is, for the most part, majority of everybody are elves, which is supposed to try to be explaining the fact that there's so many different races. And then we start seeing one or two races, and it's like, okay, hi, you exist in this world. Okay, bye. Enjoy running around.
Yeah, here's a Cyclops, here's an elf, here's a...
We're like, oh, we don't get to learn more about you. We're just going to focus on our two elf boys. You legitimately could have made these a bunch of humans. The story would have been the exact same.
Yeah, I do find it weird. You see, throughout the movie, one Minotaur.
Yeah, when they're supposed to be pretty common.
Yeah.
You get that impression pretty quickly. Especially since in the older time you see the fact that there appears to be a lot more of them.
That's one thing I found weird. I also hate to say it, but it was really weird to see a Minotaur dating an elf.
Yeah?
I just didn't understand that. I'm sorry. It was very confusing, especially because he's the only Minotaur we've seen.
Yeah. I will say, I have nothing against cops. In fact, I personally very much appreciate everything they do. I did think it was really funny. They make a funny joke at the beginning of the movie where the older brother's name.
Barley.
Where Barley goes ahead and explains to him that, you know, at one point, Minotaurs could run up to 70 miles per hour, and his response is, but I have a car. Why would I run? And I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Just because it's trying to make that image of, you know, this lazy cop who can't run, and later on, when we see him run legitimately 10 feet, he's all out of breath. And I thought it was just a really funny little, like, subtle joke in there.
I did like that.
And there were a lot of good subtle jokes. And I laughed quite a bit throughout the movie. Mm-hmm. Especially if you are a D&D nerd and you'll sit there and you'll see parts like, this is funny, I can see this. I mean, at one point they pull out the player's manual. Of course, it's for this game in this world that they made, but it legitimately is the Dungeon and Dragon player manual. So Ian can start practicing spells from the dungeon manual in order to learn how to use magic, which was a fantastic little side joke going, mm-hmm. Oh, hey, Dungeons and Dragons, it exists. This is how it's used.
I also really liked, so when Barley talks about his Dungeons and Dragons game, he makes it seem like he's more of a DM, but he knew all the spells memorized by heart. And I think it's really cute, but I also found it a little...
confusing?
Yeah, like, why... Unless you played a wizard, and even then, I don't think you would memorize every single spell. And with their spells, they have specific tasks you need to do while during those spells. How would you remember all those without actually using them? Again, it was really nice because it helped him show his brother, because his brother wasn't into the D&D game, it really helped tie it in and help him guide his brother like he has been his entire life.
But they do a good job of showing that the brother is very, like, obsessed with this world, with his game.
Most definitely.
And so it didn't bother me too much, because, I mean, frankly enough, I could actually picture even just Chris Pratt, when doing this role, just standing in the middle of a hallway, randomly standing in one of these poses, saying one of these spells, trying to do the magic over and over again. Because, frankly enough, that's just how that character made me feel. So that didn't bother me.
I just found it a little weird, like, you memorize.
It was quite convenient for the story that he did know it all. It wasn't, to me, weird, but it was very convenient to the story.
True. Very true.
But your overall thought?
I enjoyed the movie. Again, I would say if it wasn't for Disney Plus, we would definitely be buying the movie. And one other thing, I loved the soundtrack that they used during the movie. It
was fantastic.
And it's not even that they play long songs. It's not even that they play important songs. But the music and sound bites that they chose to have throughout the movie definitely complimented it. Definitely.
Well, it didn't pull your attention away from it. It just enhanced the scene you were in.
Most definitely. And I really appreciated that. And they weren't overly loud. They weren't overly quiet. You weren't struggling to find it. Mm-hmm. but it was a nice compliment to the scenes that they put it in. And it's not a musical, there's no singing, there's no music throughout, but the little bits that they put in really did help.
Yeah. No, and I agree with all that. Again, I thought the movie was fantastic. Mm-hmm. If it wasn't for the plot points that I just kind of was sitting there poking out in my head, I think the movie would be completely, totally flawless. But right now, I've not seen in a very long time a almost flawless movie. I think Pixar very much knocked it out of the park, and they did excellent job with it. So as I'm sure you can tell, we're in a different pose. Camera kind of died, so it's plugged up so we can finish it up. We didn't get a chance to film the outro, so that's where we're at now. So, real quick as an overview, I personally actually love the movie. It did have its flaws. Every movie does. Frankly enough, I do suggest going and seeing it because it really was well done. Chris Pratt and Tom Holland, they sat there and they did fantastic. You really feel like they're brothers, that they've been brothers for all their lives and that they've gone ahead and had that relationship the whole time. So it was, overall, in my opinion, a great movie done. Wish the tidbits that we did talk about were fixed. But if we ignore the timing problems and such, overall, it was a fantastic movie.
I do agree. And I most definitely, I know I got chills throughout the movie. I know I teared up a little bit. Towards the end, I really wanted to cry. And I know that there are people in the theater, I know people in the theater did cry during the movie.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I overheard conversations after the movie where they're like, oh yeah, I just saw Onward and yeah, I cried. It was really moving in some parts. I will definitely agree with that. I cried a little bit, or wanted to at least. It's a really touching movie. I definitely recommend going and seeing it. I know one of my friends was concerned that it was going to be really sappy, or just a big lead on. I really liked it. I don't think it was that way.
No, I wouldn't say that.
I definitely would recommend seeing it if you have any interest. Go see it. Yeah, I would definitely buy it. I really do want to go see it again, watch it for a second time. See if we missed anything.
Yeah, no, I'm sure we did because there were a lot of subtle details, so look forward to seeing it again.
I do indeed.
So, it's been real.
It's been fun.
Which means it's been real fun. We shall see you guys all a little later.
Bye, guys.